Hey, everybody, this is Harvey Sluggo Wasserman back for the 157th Green Grassroots Emergency Election Protection Coalition Zoom call. We are stacked again with a tremendously powerful program. In the first hour, we're going to be talking to Andrea Miller about the latest victories in Virginia. Always great to talk about victories. I'm going to talk to Steve CARUSO from Ohio about the victory there on the two referenda, one for choice and one for pot, and the attempts by the Republicans in Ohio to reverse yet another statewide referendum that they don't like. It's truly astounding. These guys really, really hate democracy, and so Steve, our plant in Central Ohio, is going to fill us in on that. We're also going to be joined around 2:45 Pacific time by Dennis Bernstein, the host of the Flashpoints show in Berkeley, who's going to talk to us about censorship and the censorship he's been feeling because of his coverage of the war in the Middle East. Very, very powerful stuff and very important stuff. And then in the second hour, starting at 3 o'clock Pacific, 6 o'clock Eastern time, we're going to really go on a very, very deep, high-profile dive on the energy issue in the United States. We're going to be joined by the great Roy Morrison, who I think has already joined us, and that'll be in an hour to talk about renewables. We're going to talk with Scott Denman about a major victory in the failure of a small modular reactor situation. And we're also going to be joined by Amory Lovins, one of the really great world-class experts on renewable energy, and someone really who has had a global impact. It's really Amory's vision that we're working off for a 100% green-powered Earth. Amory and I first connected in 1975, before most of you were born, at a conference in Western Massachusetts, where we really kind of formulated the idea for Solartopia and a green-powered Earth. We're also going to have Robert Freeling and Linda Seeley from the Diablo fight. So it was really going to be intense on energy in the second hour. In the first hour, as I say, we're going to focus on some significant victories. I don't see Andrea Miller on yet, but I'm sure she'll join us. We're good to say hi to Carl Grossman, John Steiner, Kat Kramer, some of our great regulars. Roy Morrison, it's good to have you with us. You'll be with us talking about your renewable energy stuff in the second hour. But glad to see you after all these days since the heyday of the Clamshell Alliance. TATANKA BRICCA is with us as well. TATANKA, did you want to say something at the get-go here? I think you had a hand. Oh, you're muted anyway here. Let's unmute you.
It was just a comment when you were saying don't weigh in on the Martians if you can't speak for them. I was just saying we can have Danny Sheehan sometime soon talking about UAPs, and that would be interesting.
All right, so what are UAPs again?
UFOs. It's a new term for UFOs and ETs.
What is
he is, pardon me?
What is it? What's the new one?
UAPs, unidentified aerial phenomenon, is what the terminology of the military and the international community is now. But anyway,
how is that better than UFOs?
I don't know. I don't understand that. All I know is that he's responsible for setting up this civilian thing, which is going through Romero in Washington, D.C., and he's vetting the 9-person board that will take the information from the military that's going into the congressional office now, and then this group will vet what's true and what isn't, and it'll go directly to the president. So he's very busy with that.
President of what?
Well, whoever is the president of the United States.
Okay.
Danny wrote the legislation that Biden signed into law 3 days before last Christmas that ordered the Pentagon, all branches of the military, the Defense Department, the entire intelligence community, and private contractors to turn over everything they know about UFOs and ETs since January of 1945.
Maybe we could have him on the anniversary of that bill signing.
That's a possibility.
Good, good, good. So we want to do that. We want to talk more about these UFOs. I'm going to stick with the old UFO because
yeah, I do too. Just lastly, a lot of this is coming out of the Senate Subcommittee on Intelligence, in which AOC and Jamie Raskin and a number of other Bernie people are active. So his meetings with them regularly also dovetail with the new government in waiting that we've been working on. I've been working on with Danny for 3 years, a progressive government in waiting, a document for every all the 15 cabinet positions and agency positions. And we're just about a first draft. By the end of the year, we'll have our first draft out to the public.
Great, great. That sounds fantastic. Mike, could you contact Andrea Miller? I don't see her on yet. Maybe she needs a reminder that she's due on. That would be really good. We have 38 people with us. We're waiting for Andrea Miller, but we're going to go into Ohio now. In Ohio, we won a major victory, two major. I was joined by Dennis Bernstein. Dennis will be on later in the hour to talk about press censorship and the war in the Middle East. As I remind everybody, we are going to focus in the second hour on energy, but in the first one, we want to talk about the electoral situation, which was quite an astounding leap forward this past Tuesday, and especially in Ohio, where by very large margins, the public approved two referenda, constitutional amendments, one to protect a woman's right to choose, and the other to legalize marijuana and make it. It's been legal technically on medical grounds, but it now needs to be commercialized. And Steve, you're there in Central Ohio. I know you just toked up before the gathering here, but now we're hearing that the Republicans in Ohio want to overrule or sabotage both referenda. Can you talk about that?
Yes, they've gone to such an extent, some of the extremists, to give the legislature top billing and doing anything, including excluding the judiciary of Ohio. So there's also, like here on the screen, I'm sharing 27 House Republicans signed a letter pledging to block any laws from being repealed. So these are laws like the 6-day abortion thing that's been on hold and that hasn't come to fruition, has been blocked by a judge. And so all the implications of the new law affecting what laws were on hold until this passed. So there's definitely a ground move. It's like a kid stealing your bike and then he paints it funny color and puts spoke tickets on it and whatever. This is what they've done in the redistricting of Ohio, the illegal, unappropriated votes of the people of Ohio. They've just taken the bike, they're riding around with it, they're doing whatever they want. And we're supposed to sit here and just say, hey, you know, this kid's cool, you know, because he stole somebody's bike, right? No.
Well, it's truly astounding. By very, very substantial margins, the people of Ohio passed constitutional amendments. These aren't just little fly-by-night, you know, bills coming out of a legislature. Constitutional amendments to legalize choice and to legalize pot for recreational use. And you got these Republican legislators who are in power because they're gerrymandered and who have also sabotaged two constitutional amendments on gerrymandering, for God's sakes. And now they're sabotaging these constitutional amendments. It is truly astounding.
Well,
I mean,
the marijuana law isn't a constitutional amendment. It's just legislation. So that they could just, current legislators just go in and take it and do whatever they want. They could ban it, they could block it. And the people aren't putting up with it. You see the results of the count and how it overwhelmed votes for Trump, votes for this, votes for that. And the people spoke, 2.1 million people for both issues, or at least, so that
it's staggering.
Yeah.
And there will be an attempt to put another anti-gerrymandering a vote, statewide vote. I don't know if it'll be a constitutional amendment, but the state legislature in Ohio told the Ohio Supreme Court basically to take a hike, and they're telling the public to forget about it, that we're not going to have democracy in Ohio, that the state legislature, which is totally gerrymandered, supermajority for the Republicans, even though the state is pretty much evenly divided. And now they're trying to overrule these two states, as they did with the gerrymandering thing. I mean, they sabotaged the people's will on gerrymandering for years. And that's the only reason they're still in power. And here they are now doing it on abortion and on legal pot. It's absolutely staggering. MYLA RESON, you have a hand? MYLA RESON, you have a hand?
I'm sorry, legacy hand. I really wanted people to subscribe to the YouTube channel. I put our YouTube channel, I put the link in the chat. Please subscribe.
Okay, thank you very much. And did we have someone else had a hand? I think I missed them. Steve, do you see someone with a hand, or should we continue with this?
Yeah, I'll call on them if they do.
Okay.
Yeah, so here's an article here, and JD Vance is all over this too. I mean, it's like the more power they get, the more ridiculous they become. And we have to take the power back. We did with the elections, and we want to do it democratically. There's no violence. The violence comes from the Republicans trying to take down what the Ohioans have voted for. So let's stop with that. You can see here on the map, share the yes vote for reproductive rights issued by county, 74% up, okay, for yes, for issue 1. Issue 1 and 2 did particularly well in the state's urban centers. You see issue yes votes for recreational marijuana, 69%. So apparently the issue 1, the abortion issue, won out over the marijuana votes. So people are really determined to keep that right proper in Ohio, that people should be able to make their own medical decisions. And I don't know why this isn't actually a privacy issue dedicated in the national constitution of the United States.
It's truly amazing. It is amazing. Yeah. Remember, Ohio's a swing state. JD Vance, who Steve mentioned, is the Republican senator who was the author of that book, Hillbilly Elegy. Is that what it's called?
The what?
What is the name of JD Vance's book?
Oh, geez. The movie. Yeah.
Yeah, they made it.
That's the name.
I blocked it.
Hillbilly Elegy is right.
Yeah, Hillbilly Elegy.
Okay, so that's Ohio. We had major victories and thank you for that. And as you'll recall, prior to this, in August, the Republicans in Ohio tried to raise the threshold for a successful statewide referendum vote or constitutional vote to 60%. And they did it in an August vote that was completely illegal, made no sense whatsoever. And that failed. And so then they came back now in November. The both referenda on pot and on the constitutional amendment did not pass by 60%, but they did pass with very heavy majorities and completely legitimate. And this has not fazed these right-wing MAGA people in the least. They're just saying, well, that was kind of a bump in the road, and the people be damned. And they voted for legal pot and they voted for legal abortion, but we don't care we are now going to overrule the public referendum. And you're saying, Steve, on this that it's both issues. They're trying to find ways around legalizing abortion and around legalizing pot. Is that correct?
Yes. Well, not so much the marijuana might be limited. We're going to just have to wait and see what happens. Any lawsuits by groups are might challenged by the legislature, and they're trying to deprive the courts of their decision making and just saying the legislature has total control over what happens over this issue, which is a non-starter for democracy, obviously. So we're just going to have to wait and see how it falls out. But right out of the chute, the day after the election, they're out there pounding the table. Huffman, who's head of the Senate in Ohio, and Stevens, who the Democrats in Ohio helped get into office in opposition to somebody else who's head of the House. They're both coming out, shaking their fists like they're not going to put up with this. And it's like, hey, people spoke, dude. If you want to run your legislature that way, you're definitely not playing by the rules, and you're going to be out, hopefully.
Truly astounding. I will remind everybody that the previous Speaker of the House, Larry Householder, is currently in prison, serving this is the Speaker of the Ohio House, is currently in prison, serving the beginning of a 20-year sentence for having taken a $61 million bribe to force through a $1 billion bailout for the Ohio nuclear plant at Davis-Besse and the other one at Perry. That is the status of government in swing state Ohio. And it's absolutely appalling. So that's where we're at now, and with Ohio. And it's hard to imagine what's going on there. We do have a Senate race coming up in next year, in which Sherrod Brown will be running against some right-wing Republican, and the polls are showing him losing to virtually anybody at this point in time.
It's Marino. This other guy's come in, his name Marino. And also the Secretary of State, who's putting his thumb on the scale on issue 1, he's also running. So we'll just have to wait and see how things pull off. It's too far ahead of the election to depend on anything, let alone polls. So,
well, it's pretty amazing, I gotta say. We do not have Andrea Miller on with us. Andrea Miller, are you with us?
She's not here. I'm still waiting for her.
Okay. So Dennis, do you want to talk now about your issues of censorship? Dennis Bernstein and the Middle East war. Dennis Bernstein, are you ready to rock and roll here?
Actually, I had asked Kevin to join us at the time that you suggested at 2:45. So I think I'll wait for him to join us.
Okay, that's fine.
Thank you.
Does anyone else want to? I want to do well. Let's segue into Virginia.
Lynn Feinerman has her hand up.
Oh, I don't see Lynn. I think we've had this issue before. Lynne Feinerman, go ahead.
Yes.
Did you want to speak,
Hi.
Lynn?
Yeah. Maybe I should have kept it for if and when Dennis and Kevin talk, but I'm really deeply anxious about what is unfolding in the Middle East. We've got the US bombing in Syria. We've got a nuclear submarine in the Mediterranean. We've got a secret US base in the Negev in Israel. We've got, I just read an interview in the New Yorker with a lady by the name of, I call her a lady, Daniela Weiss, who has been a leader of the settler movement. And she's talking about that Israel has to have all the land that they had in ancient times, which means that they want most of Syria, most of Lebanon. We're talking about a really strange situation, and I'm very anxious about it. So I just wanted to put that out there.
Okay, absolutely. We will in 2 weeks. We are not going to meet next week, folks. We're going to take that day for Thanksgiving. That will be the 20th. We will be off. The 27th, we will reconvene. That is the day after the Thanksgiving weekend. And we will devote an hour of that program to a discussion of what's going on in the Middle East. But I certainly understand your concern here, Nancy and Lynn. And you also have a radio show on which you've discussed these issues. So do you want to give us the link to that? Are you still doing your radio show, Lynne Feinerman? Lynn, are you with us? Oh, you're still in there.
Lynn is muted. Hang on a second, I'll unmute
All
you.
right.
Hi, yeah, I was muted. Yes, I am definitely still doing Women Rising Radio, and I will also put a link to an article that I wrote on the Middle East situation that was published in Counterpunch. So thank you.
I put those links in at 2:45. Dennis Bernstein, are you with us?
I'm here.
I think it would be best if you go forward now, because if Andrea Miller comes on, we're gonna, and you've had a segue here from Lynn. If Andrea Miller comes on later, we're gonna want to talk with her. Are you good to talk now? Dennis? Oh, Jesus.
Dennis,
You talking to me now? Yes.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. If you want to go ahead, I know you
Okay,
want
I just heard what Lynn said, and I'm sure you know, Harv, that the ice cream trucks now on the ground in Gaza are being used to carry children's bodies around. And the situation is definitely about a cleansing. Clearly, the program is to purge northern Gaza and really push the Palestinians into Egypt. So it's clearly an ethnic cleansing that the U.S. is co-financing. But what my experience, I've been covering this subject for close to 4 decades now, and the more violent that the Israelis get, and the more vicious they get towards the Palestinians, their lobbyists get more anxious and do a lot more to shut down any kind of criticism. So we saw Rashida Tlaib, the only Palestinian in the Congress, being censured. My program, Flashpoints, started out in Los Angeles as a 5-day-a-week show. Then I started playing the Electronic Intifada. And then it went to a 2-day show. And now it's a 1-day show. Our Friday show was just taken off. And it's interesting because we 3 weeks ago, we started a media deconstruction column, deconstructing Warlandia. And it's like a show that I started many years ago. Maybe some of you know the show Counterspan. I founded that about 30 years ago, or however many years ago, to take on the lying that was happening about Reagan, the Iran-Contra scandal, and the overthrowing and purging of the Nicaraguan government. And the lying was so big that we started a media show, and that's how Laura Flanders got her first job. I'm sure some of you know the work that she does. So we just started a media column on Fridays on our Flashpoint show, and all of a sudden my Friday in Los Angeles disappeared. So now we're on once a week on Mondays. I think if you're all interested in following up, I think you should check out a very powerful article in consortiumnews.com that's up there now. I think it's the second item up on their website that deals with the extensive level of AIPAC, what happens particularly to Jewish reporters when they take the story on, and how AIPAC sustains its power to do whatever it wants. Harv, I sent you an article that was written by the late and great Robert Fisk. Can you please put that up? It talks about what happens to Jewish journalists when they try and report about Israel in the United States. Some of you may know Robert Fisk, the great reporter on the Middle East who broke the Sabra and Shatila massacre story and the relationship with Ariel Sharon. I want to be very clear. I don't have any evidence that I went from 5 days to 1 day, but it certainly happened in the context of playing the electronic intifada and then my expanded war coverage. And the idea that the media column gets canceled 2 weeks after it starts. Are you still here? You still hear me? Yes. Did I just get cut off?
No, go ahead. No, you're good. You're good. Go ahead. And MYLA RESON has posted the article, A Strange Kind of Freedom, on the page here.
Yeah, this article was written by Fisk. He was in Berkeley to speak, and I was introducing him. So I started quoting from the emails and the death threats that I was getting for just telling the truth and covering Israel. He ended up being in my office the next day at 8 o'clock in the morning, wanting to read all the emails. And he wrote this piece about what happened to me and other writers when we take on this story. And it's not, it's anybody who tries to consistently tell the truth and has a real platform is going to be under scrutiny, shall we say. If you read the article, you see that I would get emails that would say something like Hitler killed the wrong Jews, and God willing, you'll have your throat slit Daniel Pearl style by one of your Palestinian friends. That's the kind of things. I remember I got a long distance call from some rabbinical students in Israel who were raging at me and saying how happy they were that I was old because I was going to die soon. So here I am again trying to get the word out in the middle of what, I don't know, I've already heard a dozen international human rights, legal experts, you name it, former UN people in the occupied territory saying this is a genocide in motion. And the United States of America is a co-partner and a funder of the genocide. And the more we talk about it, believe me, I'm going to get ramifications. Somebody's listening here, and I'm going to get ramifications about having my show taken off or whatever. But I want to appeal to folks. Like I say, it used to be 5 days a week. Now it's 1 day a week. That's Monday. And it would be great if, a lot of times what they do is they buy people off with airtime. So I am hoping that the people who maybe they know now that essentially they've been participating in the purge will not take the bait. But again, maybe there are some journalists on who have experienced what I've experienced, but I can tell you this, the totals from Gaza include 49 dead Palestinian journalists. This is a history-making, record-breaking Guinness Book of Records victory. Already, in 5 weeks, 49 journalists targeted and murdered, and they opened fire on a press conference today in the Middle East. So the situation continues, the censorship continues. I urge everybody to stand up and speak out for the truth and fight against this kind of intimidating lobby work. I mean,
Dennis, will you
Jeremy,
put...
Yes.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Go ahead.
Just to give you an idea of how important it is, you've got somebody like Jeremy Bash, the former executive chief of staff for the CIA, going on the Nicole Wallace show, saying that the bombing of the Gaza Strip, now this is just pinpricks, the former CIA chief of staff. Anybody who's witnessed this, would you call it pinpricks? He repeats that on the corporate press all the time, and none of us hold him accountable. So it's just an example. Sorry.
Well, no, please. Dennis, put your links in the chat, and also, of course, the link to your show, Flashpoints, on KPFA. Here's the question I want to ask. How much of this is Netanyahu as opposed to Israel? Would it be more productive for the peace movement worldwide to focus on Netanyahu rather than on, because Netanyahu has not been legitimately elected. He's facing criminal charges. This war will never end.
Harv, I'm sorry to interrupt. The occupation is what the problem is. You've got an occupied people. I mean, we could break it down very simply. World War II, a bunch of white European fascists murdered about 7 million Jews. And so the European community wanted to do something to it. So they decided they would take the Palestinians' land and give it to the Jews. And there's been war ever since. And it's never going to end until somebody can draw me a picture of what a contiguous Palestinian state looks like. It's occupation. It's the illegal occupation. It's a country, the occupier, slaughtering the people who they are occupying. This is an easy thing to see. It's a hard thing to deal with. The slaughter now, 2.3 million people, they don't know whether they're coming or going. They've been told to flee in one direction. So when they get there, they get bombed. How many is it going to take before we all stand up? We're up to 11,500, 4,500 kids. Is it going to take 20,000, 30,000 Palestinians, 40,000, 50,000? Again, I really resent the fact that my show was taken off when we started this media column to deal with the big lie and how to help people deconstruct it. So they go after the Friday show. So I lost Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. I lost Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. The people lost the coverage we're doing. And how long do you think? Anybody want to make a guess when Monday disappears?
That's in KPFK in Los Angeles. Okay, We're talking with
a lot of supporters who really seem to love the show there. I don't know.
We're talking with Dennis Bernstein, the host of KPFA's Flashpoints in Berkeley. Steve, Lynn, and then MYLA.
Yeah, there's also 80 to 90 UNRWA teachers in school. They're killing UN personnel actually during this war.
Absolutely.
So, and the journalists, this is the way they...
I'm sorry to interrupt. A regular contributor to the show has been Hani Al-Madin, who just lost his best friend in Gaza. He's the head of UNRWA fundraising. And when you talk to Palestinians, the conversation is, I lost 14 relatives. I lost 17 relatives. He just lost his best friend. There are very few people you can talk to in Gaza now who haven't lost many people or know they are about to be among the dead.
Dennis, please remind everyone what UNRWA stands for. It's the UN Human Rights something, is it?
For Palestine, UNRWA for Palestine. I'm sorry.
Oh, that's okay. That's okay.
My dyslexia is
That's fine. I just wanted to mention that I got an email from Marcy Winograd late last night that the State Department is demanding, or I'm sorry, the State Department is licensing 24,000 military grade assault weapons for distribution to settlers and paramilitary forces that are terrorizing Palestinians in the West Bank. And she has asked people to write to their congressional representatives and to demand that they stop this, that they block this and this joint resolution. So it's joint resolution, excuse me, I'll put the information in the chats, but it's as stipulated in the Arms Export Control Act of which is AECA under 22 USC 2753, 2776, and 2796. And that again is, please contact your congresspeople and demand that they block this this sale or licensing of 24,000 military grade assault weapons for distribution to settlers and paramilitary forces terrorizing Palestinians in the West Bank, because we know that this humanitarian crisis is not limited to Gaza. It is also, this horror is also being visited upon Palestinians living in the West Bank.
May I add to that, please, Maya? Can
Yes.
you hear me okay?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, about the West Bank, because people know very little about what happens there. The West Bank, all the settlements are up on the high hills, and all the settlements also have military assigned to the settlements. They have jails on the settlements up on the high hills. So the settlers and the military look down on the olive groves and on the fields, and they've already killed, since this war started, they've killed 170 people.
Yeah.
They have had dozens of raids in which they bring in this huge military bulldozer, and essentially they're bulldozing the memory of Palestine. The olive groves, the olives are going to die because those who own them are afraid to go out into the olive groves now. Every time they go out, they get shot at, they get murdered. So under arrest now, there have been something like 2,000 arrests. Right now the Israelis have about 7,000 people in jails. Many of them have not been charged with any crimes. Many of them are children. The settlers do whatever they want. They shoot whoever they want. They beat whoever they want, and they're backed up by the soldiers. And you really can't tell the difference sometimes who the settlers are and who the soldiers. But they've got carte blanche to do whatever they want to the Palestinians on the West Bank, because it's not a two-state solution. It's a two-part massacre. Watch what's going on in Gaza, and we're going to make sure we do whatever we can to suppress the West Bank, because that's where the economy is. That's where the olive groves are, and that's what they're going to save for themselves once they finish the ethnic cleansing. It's a terrible.
Dennis, thank you so much. I just want to say Andrea Miller is here.
Yeah, I see Andrea. Dennis, you want to, let's
right.
go to Lynn real quickly. Then Dennis will give you a last word, and then we're going to go to Andrea Miller. And thank you so much, Dennis, for coming on with us. LYNNE FEINERMAN, and then back to Dennis. Dennis, you've got your stuff posted, and then we're going to go to Andrea Miller.
Yeah, I
Dennis.
just want to thank MYLA for telling us about that and for alerting us, because I say ditto to everything Dennis has said. And, those settlers up on the hill, when they started out, They were guarded like there were 500 settlers in Abraham Avinu Beit Hadassah, and there were 1,200 soldiers guarding those settlers. There is massive entry of the military into the West Bank in order to, and supposedly they said, you know, that they were there, and that's why they missed out on the attack, the supposed Hamas attack, whoever attacked them on the kibbutzim. And the truth is that they had been warned. The kibbutzim had been warned 3 days earlier. Yocheved Lifshitz, who was she was the 85-year-old settler woman who was released by Hamas. She said they were warned for 3 days before they were attacked. And she was really angry at the IDF because they didn't take it seriously. Why didn't they take it seriously? Good question. I'm now, you know, starting to panic because of the way that the settler movement has taken over here. And the problem with getting rid of Netanyahu, I put leaders, you know, plural in my article when I said get rid of Netanyahu, because, you know, if he goes, Smotrich will step up. If Smotrich goes, Ben-Gvir will step up. It's a settler movement that has Israel by the cojones. And we need to face what they want and stop it, because they will conflagrate the entire Middle East in order to get their piece of land. You know, it reminds me of that thing from Woody Allen, you know, one of his movies where the uncle steps up and says, I wanted to give you a piece of land. And there's this little clod of earth with plastic house on it. You know, I mean, this is what we are dealing with Sandbox 101. Nobody there has been willing. I mean, the Palestinians more than the Israelis have been willing, but nobody has been willing to share.
Okay.
And there has been no, and the United States is deeply responsible for this. The United
Thanks,
States.
Lynn.
Okay.
Lynn, we know all this, but you're
Yeah.
No. Go ahead, Lynn. Wrap up, and then we'll go to Dennis, and then we'll go to Andrea Miller.
That's okay. I'm just, you know, I've said it.
Okay, thank you very much, Lynn. Dennis, do you want to wrap up? And then we have Andrea Miller is going to give us a report from Virginia.
Okay. Thank you, Harvey, for giving me this time. I think it's one of the most important issues of our time. I think we're all going to remember where we were when we understood that there was a genocide in motion. I have a real problem with the United States ambassador to the United Nations supporting the ongoing war. And I really want people to understand that this can be stopped, and that an important part of it is getting the word out. And that is why I'm fighting for every minute of time I can get in public to cover this story. And again, to be very clear, this is a program of ethnic cleansing. When they bring those bulldozers in, they're bulldozing the streets. They're bulldozing honorary libraries. They are attempting to wipe out the memory of Palestinian. We're all responsible. Thank you.
Dennis, thank you. Thank you for your work. Put your links in the chat. In 2 weeks, we will not meet next week, but in 2 weeks, we'll have a full hour. Really appreciate having you on, Lynn. Thank you so much. And we're going to segue now to Andrea Miller. Andrea, we love to celebrate victories. We've just had some pretty riveting stuff about a war, but you won a big victory in Virginia, really shocked the country, and really made clear, I think, the value of grassroots organizing, which is the centerpiece of the whole greep raison d'etre here. Andrea, can you tell us, please, Andrea, from the Center for Common Ground, what happened in Virginia in last week's election?
Oh, well, Harvey, thank you so much. And it is not like I won this election all by myself. I know there were a number of you on this call who made phone calls, you sent postcards. We didn't really do a lot of texting. So what I'm going to do is do a really quick, brief presentation that lets you see what we accomplished. All right, now, the state of Virginia, when the General Assembly convenes in 2024, in the Virginia State House, it has 100 seats. There are now 51 Dems, 48 Republicans, and we have one House seat, House District 82, centered in Petersburg, Virginia, that was the Battle of the Kimberleys, the most competitive race in the state, where currently that race is separated by 127 votes. That means that race is more than likely going to go to a recount in the Virginia State Senate. We only have 40 seats in our Senate. 21 Dems won, 19 Republicans won, so that is decided. We made history in Virginia for another reason. Remember, Virginia was the capital of the Confederacy. There are only 40 members of the Virginia Senate, and right now there are 8 Black members of the Virginia Senate. Now, Louise Lucas and Mamie Lott, they were reelected. Aaron Rouse was first elected in 2023. That was the special election. Lamont Bagby was elected in 2023 in a special election. And these 3 women, LaSharice Fair, Jennifer Carroll Foy, and Angelia Williams Graves, were all delegates who traded up for a Senate seat, and they were all elected on Tuesday. Now, in the Virginia House, where there are 100 members, 24 of those members are Black, and that means nearly 25% of the Virginia House is Black. And we have 2 AANHPI members, Asian American members, and we have 2 Hispanic members. Well, one is Black Hispanic, so she's already here. That means there are 27 people of color in the Virginia State House. Early voting turnout was good. We really stressed early voting turnout. It was not 1.1 million, but that's because we did not have a race literally statewide. So no governor's race. Governor's race will be in 2025. We had 18 Democrats running in the House that were unopposed. So there were 18 seats that I knew we were going to win automatically. So we did not come in those races. I have huge concerns about campaign finance. Virginia is one of only 2 states that have 0 campaign finance rules. So if somebody wanted to give a candidate in Virginia $1 billion for running for a state office, we have nothing to stop it. So House District 31 was an $11 million race. This normally has never happened before. This race, Senate District 16, is in a Richmond suburb. That was also a $10 million race. There are a lot of women that are now in the General Assembly. So in the Senate, we elected 5 new women, and in the House, we elected 7 new women. and that is the state of the state in Virginia. Harvey, you're muted.
One impact of Andrea Miller, do you believe the Center for Common Ground and the GOTV and the early voting had on this election? That's the key. Did your efforts make a difference?
Yes, yes. What we saw was the candidates who did not win did not have a very good early voting strategy. And so we had a number of multi-million-dollar races, and the candidates just did not embrace early voting. And these were candidates that had a lot of money. And so our effort were behind the women candidates on our 501c4 and the African American men candidates on our C3 side. So when the candidates won the early voting competition, and we could tell when our phone banks kicked on and we were calling into a particular district, we emphasized early voting. We saw candidates go from the bottom third of early voting turnout to the top third. And when we stopped calling for them, they dropped down again. So we know that our messaging and our outreach really, really, really helped candidates. And in HD 82, which is separated by 127 votes, and we heard unfortunate reports that the ground game on that race was very, very bad. That candidate had such a big lead in early voting that this is what kept her competitive and in that race. And when we watched the returns come in on Tuesday night, a number of our candidates that ultimately won were behind. And then at 10:30 p.m., when they dumped the early voting votes in, those candidates rose to the top and stayed there.
So what you're saying basically is that when you do your guidebook with Ray McClendon on how to do this kind of campaigning, and we circulate it around the country, it will have an impact.
Yes, yes, yes.
And
or candidates running in states that have early voting. Very, very important too. I'm going to grab the Republicans' phrase, bank your vote. Get those votes in so that they're already in and they're already counted. And in the event there end up being problems, you find out about the problems that the voter may have prior to election day. And in many instances, they will be able to correct whatever the voting issue is. When you only show up and vote on election day, there may be 2 or 3 days to correct any problem that you have. In Virginia, we've got 45 days of early voting, so we've got a lifetime. Come in, vote early. If you have a problem, let's get it fixed.
well, in your guidebook, it would be helpful, of course, then to list the states that have early voting, and then to hopefully to campaign to get early voting in the other states. Ron Leonard, you have a hand, Ron Leonard?
I have a hand, and I said it once, and I'll say it again. Andrea, you are my hero. You are the reason that this country will come back to a democratic, quote, way of electing people. Yeah. And
Yes.
really, to get
you.
this straight in my mind, a $20 million race was turned around on a dime by somebody who only had a dime. And this is really the juice of grassroots. When we saw all these commercials on those TV stations, and they repeat and they repeat and they repeat, and they're obnoxious and they're horrible, but when you reach out and make contact with people, people respond, people to people. You have the solution. Now we got to get the DNC to adopt the solution. That's you.
Well, we are
Oh, thank
nonpartisan,
you,
of
Ron.
course. I will
Thank
say that
you.
there was what I thought was an outrageous ad put out by Terry McAuliffe from the Democratic Party, calling himself the common good. I mean, it was
Oh.
like, I think you should sue him for plagiarism, frankly.
We should write a
saw that,
book.
and
We should write a
I was
book.
not pleased. I was not pleased.
well, sue the guy. What can I say?
There's nothing common about Terry McAuliffe, nor is there anything good.
Oh, God.
Well, thank you, Andrea Miller. This has been a very valuable update. We wanted people to understand you got to celebrate your victories. We won these two
Yes.
victories in Ohio, and that's why I always tell war stories about marijuana stuff and stopping nuclear plants, which we're going to get into in the second hour here. But we won the Georgia Miracle thanks to grassroots organizing, which switched 2 U.S. Senate seats, and God help us if that hadn't happened. And
Well, and again, Harvey, remember, we elected a Black man and a Jewish man at the same time in Georgia, you all.
well, that
Yep.
would never have happened otherwise. And now, what is the lineup in the Virginia legislature? Is it now different? What?
Oh, good Lord. The Virginia legislature, the average age has dropped 25 years.
Wow.
Yeah, so it has gotten younger. And as I showed in the images, it has gotten blacker and it has gotten a lot more female. So now the governor is talking about how he's going to play nice. I love what a girlfriend said about our victory. She said, we have personally written the political obituary for Youngkin.
Well, I'm sure that Jefferson Davis is flipping in his grave right now. So we're going to keep having you back, but everybody on the call, please pay attention. As you know, this is what we've been pushing for the past almost 4 years, is the idea that grassroots organizing, GOTV, personal campaigning, democracy centers, this is the key to having a democracy. And if we don't do it, we don't. Thank you so much, Andrea. Really great to have you with us. Put your
and one last thing, for Virginia in 2024, we now have the 3 seats that were held by women. Those 3 seats, we are potentially going to see primaries. District 2, Elaine Luria's old seat, Jennifer Wexton in District 10. Jennifer, unfortunately, has a major health crisis. And in my district, Congressional District 7, Abigail Spanberger announced today that she will be running for governor of Virginia in 2025. So she will not be running for re-election in her CD7 seat.
Well, please do get that as much of that book done as you possibly can. We will be working with you on it. John Steiner's on the call, and we want it out as soon as possible. Andrea Miller, thank you so much, and congratulations for winning. We are going to break now for a moment because we're going to move into the energy industry. Thank you, Andrea, and green power. And we've got a break at the top here, Justin. We'll get you in the second hour.
This is just to congratulate, because I was on Andrea's team joining in with the calls. I want to say she's not just effective, her teams are fun. So really you should join them as well.
Hey,
thank you, Justin.
We'll have some Ben and Jerry's as we do that. Thank you, Justin. Thank you for that. Thank you also, Ron Leonard. We are going to take a very brief momentary break to break the recording so we can have a separate recording going forward on energy.